Who's pound for pound number one? This generation has had many undisputed world champions and phenomenal talent, with a couple standouts who rank above the rest as the greatest of this era. But the debate is still as hot as ever on who is the best right now. So who actually is the current best active boxer?
Yeah, so right now, obviously on the pound for pound list, the top three guys and the main three who are pretty much the only ones really in that number one spot contention are Naoya Inoue, Terence Crawford, and of course Alexander Usyk. All three two-division undisputed world champions. Inoue at the lighter weight classes, Crawford at 140 and 147, Usyk obviously at cruiserweight and heavyweight. So is it Inoue, is it Crawford, is it Usyk? One of those guys, in my opinion, is 100% the best pound for pound boxer right now. They're all great and they're all going to go down as some of the greatest of this generation, but I do think one of them is maybe a bit above the rest.
When you're first looking at Terence Bud Crawford, you can't deny this guy is one of the best of this generation. He has all the skills to back him, all the technique, all the ring craftsmanship, undefeated, hasn't lost, 41-0 record, and has been very dominant, especially recently being some top guys like, of course, Errol Spence, John Porter, Madrimov. Those top guys really starting to solidify his resume and his rank as one of the best in the world. There are some cons to his game as well. He really doesn't fight that often, usually fighting around once a year at most pretty much. We don't get to see Terence Crawford be active. He's getting older too, he's 37, and with him only starting recently to fight some of the most elite guys around his division, it feels like we could have seen so much more of Crawford than what we really got from him. He's still doing at the top level, but he's not very active. He doesn't fight really consistently, but a big thing in his crosshairs that might be able to solidify him as the top guy coming up is his fight with Canelo Alvarez. This is being set up by Saudi, by Turki Al-Sheikh, and is planned to be coming up for September. This would be a massive mega fight for sure. One of the biggest fights you can make in boxing. And honestly, a lot of people are a little bit counting Terence out because he is the smaller guy than Canelo. He's moving up. And Canelo himself is obviously a destroyer, a demolisher, and one of the top guys as well. If he's able to beat Canelo Alvarez with all these disadvantages, it can make a huge case for him to really solidify himself and start to maybe separate him as the top guy up there. You get an all-time great on your resume like that, mixed in with some of your wins against Errol Spence and Madrimov recently. You could still compare against other guys like Usyk and Inoue, but the case is really going to be strong from Crawford. And of course, he passes the eye test too. This guy's as talented as it comes. He's as pure of a boxer as it gets. But I would say Terence Crawford is maybe ranging around number 2, number 3 in the world, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, all three of these guys are undefeated, undisputed champions in multiple weight divisions, so all of them have their case. But with Crawford, he's a bit too inactive for my liking. Since 2019, he's only fought once a year, and he hasn't really fought all the top guys, even in his division. He did beat Errol Spence Jr., and that was kind of a 50-50 fight. Many didn't give Crawford the best chance, and he schooled him. One of the greatest performances I've ever seen in a boxing ring. It was a demolition job, but then there's the asterisks of obviously Errol Spence not being the same as he once was after all the accidents and everything, then moving up and fighting Israel Madrimov to a closer fight, and recently Israel Madrimov lost to Virgil Ortiz Jr., so that win doesn't look as good anymore, and he's moving up 2 weight classes, do the unthinkable and beat Canelo 3 weight divisions above his regular weight class. I'd say he's a natural 147 pounder. If he goes up to 168 and beats the best guy there in Canelo, I think he might just take the cake, I think. But how realistic is that? I don't know. The closer it gets, I start to favor Canelo a little bit more, honestly. But like you said, his talent is immense. He's a great switch hitter. He'll break you down. He'll stop you. He has devastating power in both his hands. He has a great crisp jab that he was destroying Errol Spence with in their fight. Then the mentality and killer instinct like we saw in the Sean Porter fight when he heard he was down on the scorecards and just finished him quickly within the 10th round. He is a pound for pound talent. It is kind of unfortunate we didn't really get to see him so active and fight all the top guys, because I feel like the talent is there. I feel like he could rival some of the best in the world, but just on paper his resume isn't as deep as some guys. but Naoya Inoue is a monster. As his name presents, he is also one of the top guys in the world, and unlike Crawford, he is very active. He's fighting multiple times a year, and he's doing it against some amazing talent and great fighters and making it look very easy, like when he stopped Stephen Fulton, like when he stopped Nonito Donaire in 2 rounds. Obviously, he went to war with Nonito in that first fight, a fight of the year contender back in 2019, but Inoue's just been running through everyone. Louis Neri, TJ Doheny, recently Yejun Kim, and for this guy in Japan to just be putting on these big fights and just stopping everyone, he's getting mainstream attention and has really solidified himself as one of the top pound for pound boxers in the world right now, if not potentially number 1.
Yeah, Inoue's case is for sure strong as well. Like you stated, his biggest thing going for him is how consistent and how active he is, mixed with his extremely exciting style, how powerful the guy is, how fast, explosive, fast twitched. He's 29-0 with 26 of those coming by KO, and he's still relatively young compared to both Usyk and Crawford, at least only 31. He still has a lot of time left before he calls it quits for sure. The guy has been undisputed in super bantam and bantam, incredible, just destroying every opposition that comes across from him. It'll be interesting to see what type of opponent he could get next, who can even really rival him over there in Japan. But the one thing that I'd say kind of holds him back a little bit, like you said, he's starting to get some more mainstream attention for sure, but he's still relatively unknown to the wider audience, to the mainstream media. He is actually finally getting his first fight in years in the US, but he's definitely been held back a bit by not getting some of those huge super fights that the likes of Usyk has gone against Tyson Fury, AJ, the likes of Crawford has gone against Spence, and that definitely holds his name back and from the reputation he's able to gather from the world. But at the end of the day, it's not like it's fully his fault. There's just not that many names over there in Japan, and he's doing his job. He's knocking them out, he's beating them, and as well in that weight division, there's no one there that can really compete on the name level and skill level against Inoue. So those are some factors that hold him back, but at the end of the day, it's not fully his fault. He still does his job. He's knocking them out, winning in devastating fashion, furthering the legend of him being the monster, which he really is. But I'd say for him to honestly become in that number 1 pound for pound, we're gonna have to see some more super fights in the future if he's able to get them. Hopefully with Saudi, maybe we can get some exciting fights underway. It is still tough with his weight class, but I would say that's going to be the main factor going in the future.
Honestly, if he just keeps on doing what he's doing, then he'll eventually be at that pound for pound number 1 spot. It's not like Usyk and Crawford have that many years left, and he's been doing his thing against all the best guys in his weight class. You can't fault him. Is he going to go up even more and challenge himself there? If he does and he chases greatness, then I could definitely see him solidifying himself even today. If he fought the likes of maybe Gervonta Davis, it's very unrealistic, and people have suggested that fight. I don't think that would ever happen, but if it did, and if he were to beat someone like that, then there's almost no question at that point. But on to what I think is the greatest boxer in the world, pound for pound number 1, the undisputed cruiserweight champion, undisputed heavyweight world champion, is Alexander the Great Usyk. When you look at the definition pound for pound, Usyk is fighting guys 30, 40, 50 pounds bigger than him and his natural weight. This guy is a cruiserweight who went up to heavyweight and is just on a tear, beating all the top guys, beating Anthony Joshua twice, beating Daniel Dubois, who's now IBF champion, beating Tyson Fury twice, and this guy has honestly completed boxing for what he did in the amateurs and his record and his pedigree there, an Olympic gold medalist, and then to come into the pros being undefeated, beating all the top guys, taking on all comers. I don't know how you can't say that Usyk isn't the best pound for pound number 1 guy. Yes, a lot of people argue that, okay, if you're a heavyweight, then it's hard to make the case you're the most skilled guy, but when you see what Usyk is doing to the best guys in his division, the best guys in the world, you gotta take into account that he's fighting guys that are way bigger than him. No other division is really doing that. Besides maybe Terence Crawford now fighting Canelo, you're not gonna see Inoue take on Ryan Garcia. It's just not realistic. It's just not gonna happen. Usyk is fighting guys that are way bigger than him, and He's beating them convincingly. He's beating all the best guys in his era, and I feel like his case for best boxer in the world right now and potentially going down as an all-time great is very, very high.
Yeah, everything you've said, Alexander Usyk has completed the game of boxing in its entirety. It's really extremely hard to say that he's not pound for pound number one. He goes to all the top guys in his generation's backyard and beats them, taking their belts, adding them to his resume. Giants in this heavyweight division we've seen throughout the years. The Tyson Fury, who was undefeated before. Anthony Joshua, who had been two-time champion. He's been undisputed at cruiserweight and heavyweight. Like you said, Olympic gold medalist. There's really nothing you could reasonably say against Usyk that to try to prove that he's not pound for pound. He beats everyone in his path. He's not ducking anyone. He passes the resume test, the eye test, with his crisp technique, his amazing southpaw style. Like you said, these days people claim that heavyweight boxers are not the most skilled compared to these smaller guys who are able to use their speed, their technique, their style to beat their opponents, while heavyweights, we've seen them just rely on their power, such as maybe a Deontay Wilder. But Usyk came up to heavyweight, bringing in the skills of a light fighter, way lighter on his feet than anyone around him, doing circles against all of his heavyweight competition. He's pretty much beaten everyone that's even possible to be in his path next. He's already beaten Daniel Dubois. He's already beaten Anthony Joshua. Maybe the only guy you could say left is a Joseph Parker. But it's possible they do that fight before he retires too. And I'm sure not many people are favoring Joseph Parker for that fight. And honestly, one of the most incredible things about Usyk is how he's able to maintain this style of being fast twitch, light on his feet, with the footwork, with the technique, with the style, while still being 38 years of age now. Usually when a fighter gets older, towards 38, towards 40, they start to lose that, and typically what goes last is power. But what we've seen from Usyk, he's been able to hone down his skills so much, having done this from such a young age, all the amateur fights, where his style he's perfected. He's still able to have consistency through his older age and still beat some of these giants. And maybe the only thing holding him back per se is he still doesn't get a lot of love from the general media, and people still don't really acknowledge how great he is. I think that will change once he retires. But let us know down below who you think is the pound for pound number one boxer in the world. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and click the video on the screen of what's actually next for Anthony Joshua.